it up here. We're just kind of an intimate group, I think. So, plenty of room for all of us. My name's Jeremy. I'm with Boys Town. I've been there 12 years, and I currently serve as president of the Omaha State Planning Council and president of the Charitable Gift Planners of Nebraska, which is how I got to know Christine. So she invited me here to share a little bit about storytelling. So I told my uncle, I said, okay, my uncle was the former head of St. Cecilia Cathedral as the head pastor. And I said, all right, you're going to come with me on calls. We're going to go ask people for money. He said, nope, that's why I hired you. I said, no, you don't understand. Like, it's hard for people to say no to the caller and to the top person than myself. And he's like, no, that's why I hired you. So I had to quickly adapt and learn as much as I could, just having to be on my own. So I don't know how it works when you go out on calls. If you can go with somebody, that's great, but if not, you have to be a little bit more adept at storytelling. And so what's helped me over the years is just, it's really pretty pragmatic, right? Just know your mission, and how is your mission making a difference? People like results, and people like stories. Stories are a really effective way to convey your mission. So I'll give you an example. So Boys Town, probably just saw a couple things. Our head executive director, Father Bass, announced his resignation yesterday. So after 18 years, it's a big shakeup there. But before that, a couple years ago, we announced a campaign to raise $46 million for a brand new education center. The last one was built in 1948. Actually, the year Flanagan died. And so it's not a good omen, but it lasted 75 years. He died over in Germany, actually. He died of pneumonia because President Truman sent him over there and said, hey, Europe needs this model of how to care for boys. Because again, we're just boys till 1979. So he went over there, he's doing his thing, he caught pneumonia, and he died like that, so quick. I don't know if everybody knows that. He was only 61, died in 1948. So the school was built, lasted 75 years, Band-Aid, Band-Aid, Band-Aid. It's like, we need a new school. So part of what I did when I would go to visit my donors across the country, I brought this rock, right? Like, it just looks like a rock. But what's the story behind a rock? Well, when I started telling donors that this rock came from Father Flanagan's house in Ireland, it changes the story a little bit. There's a little bit more meaning behind it. It's not just something I kicked on my way to, meet with that donor. And I would start sharing the story of how Father Flanagan had a dream. He came here, he didn't know what his dream was. He was just called by God. He was up in O'Neill, Nebraska, then he was sent down to Omaha because his brother was down here, Patrick, and he would go out at night, this is probably 1915-ish, and he would go out in the streets of Omaha downtown, and he would see men fighting, cussing, carousing with women, gambling. And he would just go back home, and his silent prayer was, hey God, I need to catch these men before they become men. I need to catch them as boys. And as the story goes, boys started showing up at the rectory door asking for food. Father, can I have a place to sleep? Do you have something to eat or drink? Do you have some clothing? And one by one and 5 by 5s, he started to, build it. And then over time, he, partnered with, Henry Monsky, a Jewish businessman, attorney who was doing similar work for the Jewish youth. Do you know the story pretty well? You see you're nodding your head here a little bit. Yeah, no, it's good. Well, the movie came out in 1938 that really put us on the map with Spencer Tracy and Mickey Rooney, and it's still run on, I think, TCM today, or TCM, Turner Classic Movie. But that's where we got the money, was from Henry Monsky to get the land where we are today, because he wasn't allowed to care for kids of color, kids who were not Catholic, or he just wanted to help kids who needed help, regardless of the background. So he was having all these restrictions by Omaha, and so he's like, well, I'm just going to go buy my own land and start it that way. So he did, and one of the things he did is help these boys find either a trade or education, which we actually still have today, which is really part of our mission. And so he had to build. He built a lot. We have 60 homes on our campus. Those weren't even built until the 80s. So before that, it was kind of a dormitory type setting. And he had to put together something for kids to take, to take up a spot there and live and learn and then go back to their community. So I kind of use that as a segue to when I meet with my donor and say, this rock came from that dream, that mission. He was in Ballyho, Ireland, and this is from where he started, and this is something that I just carry with me to say we're still building. We're about to be 106 years old and we're still growing. We'd love for you to grow with us and partner with us in this new education center. So that was kind of my setup to invite them in. Now, of course, I'm not talking the entire time like I am with you all. There's been many meetings. I know where their heart lies, what range of giving they might have, and then I go into the ask. But that was the story I shared. But before I ever shared that story, there was a lot of me asking questions to hear your story and your story. To hear the donor story is probably, I'd say, more important than sharing your own story. People, what's the people's favorite radio station is WIFM. What's in it for me? So they want to hear you talk, but then they want you to hear them talk about what's important to them. So I would just say if there are certain questions that a go-to question I ask is, Larry, I see that you've been supporting, our records show that you've been supporting Boys Town since 1983. What happened back then? What was it about, or who was it that led you to connect with our mission? Let them talk. And what's really neat about that, for Boys Town, perhaps similar with your own setting and your organization, you kind of get the same pattern answers. So for us at Boys Town, when I go out, and I'm primarily meeting with people 65 and older, just to give a reference. And so the answers I normally get are, I saw the movie in 1938 with Spencer Tracy and Mickey Rooney, or my parents gave. So I'm just giving in memory of them, legacy giving. Or the third one is a smattering of reasons why they give. But the important thing is when they share their story, why they like you, that's the information that you have to, put up here to write down when you get to your car or in the moment, and build your case for support for that future ask. So you're trying to use, a good salesperson would say, use the information they give you to sell them. It's a really simple way of saying it. Do you guys have any examples of your own, or is what I'm saying kind of making sense thus far? Or any? I'm curious, just myself, to kind of, are there any go-to questions that work really well for you to hear the person's story? Different than what I shared.
Well, I haven't done it in a fundraising capacity, but as a supervisor, just to get to know people, I'll say, tell me your story.
Yeah, perfect. It's that simple, right?
And they're like, tell me about yourself.
Yeah, that's it. And they will sometimes be an open book and share everything, and it's like, wow, they told me all that. And then sometimes they're just as taciturn as can be, and you just gotta really draw it out of them. They won't share
It's
too much.
just about developing trust, too.
Yeah, it is. And that's where you sharing your own story, I always just try to keep it to the mission, less about myself and more about who and what I represent, right? That's why they know you're there. You said a key word, that 5-letter T word, and it begins with T and ends with T. Trust is paramount when it comes to asking folks for funds. So the storytelling is really good. To segue, it was, I think, the first year of COVID. I went through the CAP course in 2014. CAP stands for Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy. So it was a course that kind of theoretically gives me a seat at the table with donors. I can't execute wills, I can't manage their money, but I can share with them charitable gift planning ideas that will lead more of their money to the church, their family and community, and not the IRS. Now, that gets anybody's attention. But to get there, I took this course that, again, it began with the storytelling to build that trust, to build that community, to even get to the ask. So it's called Life Legacy Conversations. It was not a cheap course, but it served me well. And so these are the small version of this. So what I'll share with you. So you can just, you can just kind of grab one and pass it around. But they are cards that I will take with me, depending on being funny but not being funny. Everybody's eyesight's different, so sometimes I'll give them these, and other people I'll give them those so they can see it better. Usually it's those with my clientele, the donors I see. No, if you don't mind just like taking one and passing it down, Randy. Yeah, you can just grab one to look at it. So I'm sharing this. So I'll say to them, I'll say, hey Judy,
I think I got a few.
oh, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. The idea is just to give you an idea of what they are, and to look on the back and see how you can be effective with these. So I would say, hey Judy, I'm not really good at cards. I played some bingo and some 21 in my life, but I don't. But I brought some cards with me where I thought it'd be kind of fun to get to know you. Yeah, because I'm here. Part of the reason to hear your story is you were wanting to hear a little bit of mine and Boys Town story. But I want you to just, so I take the cards out and I'm like, hey, just go through these, and if you could, select one or two and answer, what it's saying. So they're a little hesitant, but you have to, and by the way, CK Duria is awesome at this. She went through this with me as well. And you guys know her, she kind of has the personality to do it as well, but you don't have to have a, happy, you just be you, and just do it in your own way, be personalized. And I found this is a really good way to get to know somebody. And the nice thing here is you got different options that you can share with me. Now, what it's doing for you when you're asking them certain questions is painting the picture of what's important to them, especially when I give them options. So even if you order these cards or not, which you likely won't, you can still kind of formulate your own questions or try to find some topics that they would like to talk about. I often find getting to know people personally on a personal level is helps them to feel welcome. They can talk about themselves, right? So if I kind of get them off like, oh my gosh, Jeremy Bilski's here to ask me for money, I'm nervous, I'm tense, and I just come in and I'll say, hey Mike, tell me, what do you do? What's a typical day like for you? Or man, it's football season. Are you a college football fan? Or you just try to connect with them in some way, whatever it might be. A good way to do that too. When you are visiting with folks in your church, are they usually coming to your office, or are you going to see them in their home or their office? Or mix? Okay.
Yes. I'm the clergy person.
Oh, okay.
I
All
am
right.
as well.
You are too?
I am, yes.
Perfect. That's kind of what Christina's.
Which is why when he was talking and I was nodding, because I was doing listening.
There it is. There it is. And I know you.
I also know everything about Boys Town.
How's that?
I've had 3 members of my family work there.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the last name?
Brown Corson and Corson.
What department?
My wife
I've only been there since
was
2011.
worked on the hotline originally.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And
All right. That's awesome.
Then was an assistant community director in the girls' communities.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay.
My mom worked in the mail room.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Which is a nice room for vault, where all of your work bears fruit.
No, you're right. That is
My
a-
sister, when she first got out of college, as a criminal justice major, worked in one of those dorms.
Wow. Wow. Thanks for sharing. That's you got the behind the scenes look at some of the work we do there, right?
And because of what my wife did then, 27 years ago, that's why I live right next to Boys Town. When she got a call at 3 o'clock in the morning, because somebody made a suicide ideation.
Yeah.
Like, she could be at Boys Town before she really woke up.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. That's real talk right there. That's the work we do. Kids there, but also the calls we take from all over the country. People who are talking about ending their lives. Sad deal for sure.
Jeremy, how much money does Boys Town raise, and how many planned giving officers do you have for your organization?
Yeah, this is really interesting that you bring this up, because I was letting my team know between 2010 and 2013, we were raising between $53 and $55 million a year. Now keep in mind, our budget's $450 million. So we have a shortfall of around 100 and, now fast forward. Today we have a shortfall of like 140 million. So that's what we're trying to raise. Programs and services, contracts, funding, takes care, pays all the rest. So we're 84% funded through programs and services, 12% through fundraising, and 4% through management. But, so then after 2013, because I look back, it's like, we were like vacillating $2 million over 4 years. Something wasn't working too well. And then since then, we have leaked $10 million a year since then. I know this is recording, but it's okay, it's what it is. No, because with what I'm about to say, but this year we're gonna not do so well, which we all thought was gonna happen in 20, 21, or 22. And this is the year where we're gonna not do so well. I mean, geez, you can't. Well, what happens, and it was a good problem. So to answer your question, I was just plain giving Officer Jeremy my first 8 years. I had east of the Mississippi River. And I'm like, hello, we are way understaffed for fundraisers for an organization this size. We had maybe 15. We have 20 now. I have a team of 9. But for comparison's sake, St. Jude has 100 fundraisers and they raise $1 billion a year. So you kind of do the math, the ratios are about the same. We have a $1 billion endowment. People say we have all this money. I'm like, well, we're solve it in 2 years. We only take 4% of that. That's $40 million. Still got to raise. Where's the other? Still got to raise the rest. I mean, Shriners has $4 billion and St. Jude has $8 billion. Or I think we're proud that we have at least $1 billion after 105 years. Just like if you try to get your 401k up, you want to have as much in there as possible. So we are.
Father Flanagan had just had a daughter to carry on the legacy.
Right. But so what's worked for us though, we're really big on the mailings. We do a lot of mailings, but our average age of our donors is probably 74, and the average amount we get back is $22. And then we're really big too on the plan gifts, legacy giving. So we get anywhere between 15 and 20 million a year, kind of consistently. It's kind of scary. But so my job's like keep the pipeline full, don't screw it up, and keep it coming in. But where we really falter and what I and the organization was trying to do is build up our major gift program. We're not a first person connection. Our donors, they can go to school there, their kids can go to school there, they don't go to church there. And I used to work at St. Cecilia, College of St. Mary, and Scott Catholic High School. All first person connections. I'd make 10 calls, I'd get 7 or 8 appointments. I came to Boys Town, I'd make 10 calls to get 1 appointment. I'm like, who? What? I'm here in Virginia, nobody's ever visited me. I mean, again, I had this vast territory. New leadership came in 4 years ago, said Jeremy hires 3 more people like you, and now it's tripled, and I have a team of 9. And we have 3 major gift officers, in addition to the 3 plan giving guys you see come with me to meetings. And then 2, like I'd say, boots on the ground fundraisers. But it's hard, stressful work. It just is. It really is. No matter what organization size it is, it's stressful. So where I think it gets stressful for organizations and fundraisers is obviously, hey, we need you to raise this. But I always tell my leader, who's an SVP of marketing and development, but he's a marketing consultant, so he has no development experience. I'm like, his name's Bob. I was like, wow, this takes time. Like it takes about 18 months, and that's if you're having a few visits with the people to build that trust. Like you can't just get that major gift to fall into the sky. Now we do call them Flanagan miracles, where we get a planned gift. It just happened. I'm not making up what I'm about to say. We had a recent plan giving. Our Father Flanagan miracle was we got a planned gift about 3 weeks ago. It was $666,000. Did it have to be 666? Could it be like 667, 563? No, it had to be 3 6s. Anyway, sense of humor, but we great. And the guy was not in our records. Not in our records. So I don't think he'd ever given. We knew nothing. We found out he was in, I think, Wisconsin. Who? Why? I don't know. What's the story? Right?
Yeah, is that all he had? That'd be my biggest question.
I think so. I think the attorney did say 100% of his estate came to us. I think. I'm not for certain. But those happen. But what doesn't happen is without putting in the work usually. So, you know, mailings help, but, you know, we need the human capital to go out and meet these people. And so
Right.
again, back to my SVP Bob, I just said, you know, these big gifts take time. Like, I just got a $50,000 gift the other day, not the most whopping big thing, but I've been working with Doris since 2016 in Egg Harbor Township, New Jersey. It started out as a charitable gift annuity conversation. Then she cashed in some money on her IRA, and it was gonna be went from an $80,000 to a $40,000, and then when the check came in the mail, it's $50,000. So, you know, after that's a 7-year gift in the making, and I just try to convey to him, like, this takes time and effort, a lot of phone calls, a lot of personal touches.
You know, we've been hearing about how there's less giving.
Yeah, that's true.
But also, I wonder if there are less people like you who wanna go into this field.
That's a good
You
question.
know, where you said you felt like it was a call. I mean,
Yeah.
you're the first person I've ever heard that's had a call
Well,
for fundraising.
Yeah, I wasn't
It's
7
not-
years old going, I
yeah,
wanna be a fundraiser when I grow
right,
up.
but it's not easy,
But it was.
but that takes a
When I was
whole nother,
25.
a whole nother person, right?
Yeah.
And then if we're not seeing, like the people you just hired,
Yeah.
my friend works for Saving the Redwoods, and he like is the director of getting all the money, and he has people that work for him, and he's like, Teresa, they don't work, they say, oh, I gotta go pick up my kid, like, we never would've done that. So, I think
Right.
that's gonna impact it as well, right?
Yeah, there's some pros and cons there, like, so I have a 20-year-old daughter, you know, work ethic and just things are different.
Yeah.
Oh, my wife and I just yesterday, like, she was gonna be late, she was late, it just drives us nuts. Like, I'm from small town Dodge, David City, and I grew up in the Czech German community where if you're 5 minutes early, you're late. So that's me, right? Not everybody's me, I understand, my daughter is certainly not that. But to your point, you know, is that the 20 and 30 somethings have that? You have that. But what I think they do have is they're having opportunities to get the education, development, and philanthropy.
Oh,
I
yeah.
got a master's in philanthropy and development from St. Mary's University in Winona, Minnesota, from 2001 to 03. That, along with Lilly School of Philanthropy in Indiana, were the only two at the time that really had courses or advance your education on fundraising, if you will. Well, now, I think there's like fundraising courses offered in, you know, colleges.
Right, yeah,
But
that's
it's more
great.
prevalent, online stuff, right,
Yeah,
Teresa?
right.
We didn't have that back then.
Right, and that's another thing they'll bring is the GoFundMe. You
Yeah,
know,
so,
the knowledge of how to do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the scary part, you know, as a 50-something who goes, okay, it's great to raise money through technology, but it doesn't replace this. It doesn't replace, we were shut down from going on visits for 18 months over COVID. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was letting all my upper management know, like, this is not good, because in fundraising, it's relationship building, and only one person that I was in my portfolio of supporters wanted to do an online. So everything, I mean, again, my clientele is like 65, 70 and up, and so just a lot of phone calls, but that's never gonna replace the face-to-face. You have to have the people skills, the speech communication, and I mean, this is the first thing we teach our kids at Boys Town. Eye contact, an audible response, hi, my name's John Smith, and a firm handshake. Doesn't come easy for these kids. Depends on the parenting, right? Depends on the parenting. I don't want to stereotype, like I can fall into stereotypes as a Gen Xer.
But what if we're wrong? What if it's not that? What if it is, I don't want to spend all day with you and tell you about myself. I just know you're a good organization, I'm gonna hit the button.
Well, I would say this. if
But
you're
that's
getting-
a
if
whole,
you're getting
that's a
the money-
holistic concept, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's what your website looks like, it's what
Oh,
those
yeah.
stories are in your ads, it's like all that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That was the last thing I was just gonna touch on, was testimonials. No, truly, but you're right, testimonials on your website, any pamphlets, bring in a volunteer with you, bring in a church person in the seat, you know, bringing them to share why giving to your church is important. Sometimes that carries a little bit more weight than the pastor or the development director. You just kind of have to know the donor too, and that comes with time. So unfortunately, there's no easy fixes, but again, back to the younger generation and even older, I tell you, I just made a philanthropic gift the other day to Durham Museum, because my son and I have an 8-year-old son, loves Legos, we have a great Lego display, went there, I'm like, and I know the executive director there, Christy Jansen, I thought, you know, this is a great place, and I love history, so I love history, and my son loved it, so I sent a gift, but you know how I did it? I did it on my phone.
Yeah.
But you know what was cool? First time in a long time, I got a call back. I got a call from them, the development director. It wasn't Christy, but the development director, forget his name, but Corey, he called me Monday morning. And I made the gift on Saturday. He called me Monday morning to thank me. Now that is another huge component. I saw his stewardship. Oh, Richard's title says Director of Stewardship. Richard, your role is so vitally important. Because if you're just going to people to ask them and never just to say thank you and share with them how their money's done good, just put yourself in your own shoes. Like that's tough.
I think Epworth does that really well. It's one of our
Who's that?
national, Epworth Village, it's one of our national mission institutions. And they publish every quarter, I think, a newsletter, and in the back of it, it's like by the numeric denomination, what people have given, and it might even be anonymous. And then also, when they send you a thank you, on the envelope they have, you don't have to thank us, you know, say 55 cents.
Yeah.
Or this is in honor of somebody or whatever.
Yep.
So if you get a thank you, guess what's in the thank you? Another envelope. They do it so well. They really do, I think.
Does that turn donors off though? I have mixed feelings on that.
I don't think so,
Probably
because
'cause I
if
hear
they're
it.
like, well, if I wanna give again, okay, I don't have to write out, you know, or I'll give it to somebody, or throw it away.
Yeah.
I
If it's somebody I wanna keep giving to, it goes in my inbox.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I might not today, but.
Yeah.
See, I think this is where we do injustice to clergy and training. I never had any classes in seminary about fundraising, about any of this.
Right.
And we assume that, oh, now this is your job. And I think this kind of a conversation with and I went to seminary late in life, and I had a bunch of kids in my classes who didn't believe most of the stories I tried to tell them about what life might be like living in a parsonage or serving in church. They'd be like, it's not like that. Oh, call me in 10 years. But I think that's where we're not doing clergy any good by not giving them the tools. I mean, I can tell a story, but and I've already written down several things for our commitment campaign for this year. But this is beyond commitment campaign. This is something beyond. And I don't, as we talked about, I think in the first session, I think maybe you were in here, maybe I remember the first session with Randall. And talking about it's the expectation that the pastor will spend this much time out doing this, and I've never had that conversation with anybody, and I'm in a church that has a foundation, and it's just changing how I think about that. And who is that the expectation of the church? Because that's a conversation we've never had.
See, I was surprised really when there was like a clergy section to this, because I always thought, well, the ministers can't take the offering plates down, right? They're not supposed to be involved in any of that except blessing it. So I always thought it was more the parishioners' responsibility. Like I've been on a couple capital campaigns, and I never felt like the pastor was the head of that, because also they might be leaving.
Yeah.
And this was more like a legacy, I guess.
Mhm.
So I think it's great,
Yeah.
but it's interesting.
Well, so I've been doing this a long time, and when I was a lay employee in a church, and the pastor asked treasurer for a list of the top givers, just to regular offering, and was presented with a list, and he invited that group to a special dinner to say thank you. And the person who was at the top of the list called him and said, how dare you know what I give?
Right.
And was very offended by that. And so that has shaped me in my thinking and what is appropriate. And so that's part of my story in terms of how I think about this, because my little head is just going around today about what is the expectation in the particular church I'm serving, because I think it's different in everyone. But I think, for a national organization, you're gonna expect that call from a philanthropy officer or
Right.
so I'm gonna have this conversation with my church and ask them what their understanding is of this, what the foundation, what my role is as a fundraiser, and is it to tell the story? And being new, a 2-year person there, my story of the church is very different, so it's more important to hear their story, as you said. I serve a church that has had several breakups over the years, and really ugly separations.
Like
And so-
tiptoeing.
And so I can almost, I won't say you, I can almost define who's from what era by the story they tell. And it impacts, like, the people who were there for the 97 breakup are at the top of the list on giving. Because they lived through a time when half the membership took off and they decided we're gonna stay, we're gonna be open, our doors are gonna be there. Those are still the very faithful, the aging givers. And
Right.
so then there's, then the next breakup, and then the next breakup. So it's just, that's where my story here, I think, comes in.
Yeah. Is
So
it-
then my storytelling.
Is it Marita?
Marita, yes.
So it's interesting what she shared about at the top, being the storyteller or being the fundraiser. Look at universities and colleges. Like those people at the top, they went to school to be an educator, to lead an education system, and now they're kind of being asked to raise money. So it's,
Right.
I feel for the leaders at the top. Like even Father Base at Boys Town, my director, who I report to, our senior director of development, would go with Father. So Father would kind of share the story, and then they would talk about who'd make that happen.
I think that's true for executive directors of nonprofits.
Yeah.
They think, oh, we're gonna go in there and, change the world, but then they end up having to get the money
Raise
for their own
funds,
salary.
right. And I'm kind of defend Father Bates. I said he went to school in a seminary to be a priest, to be a pastor of his flock, not a
Yeah.
fundraiser. So it's tough, it's hard, and so I'm here today just to say if it's on you to have to do some part of that, just find a way to share a story, a compelling story, or use a testimonial, or find a director of stewardship that can make those calls. I was sharing at the start, like my uncle, the priest, wouldn't go with me on visits, and so that's why I hired you. You go. I'm like, well, it's harder for them to say no to you than me. And there's some truth to that. I laugh, but you got to kind of find what works for you and your particular flock, I guess.
I think one of the advantages you have is being on a team with Boys Town is Boys Town has a brand that is known throughout the United States.
Yes.
It's trustworthy, and you accept money from all faiths.
Yeah.
You just don't
Yeah.
focus on the Catholics. A lot of people think it's just a Catholic organization.
It's actually, we are officially non-denominational Christian church.
Yeah, but it's
from the
really not.
beginning, Flanagan.
So some people get confused because
So we've
there's
always
a
had a
father
Catholic priest.
involved in the process, but what the United Methodist Church, I think, has missed out on for the last 50, 60 years is all we focus is on United Methodists. We could tell the story to everybody, because there's so many unchurched people in America today, over 50%, who are potential givers.
Yeah.
And we're not getting any of those funds, because we don't
Right.
reach out like the Catholics, because they own a lot of the network stations, and they are the people who get the press. We don't get the press. When was the last time the bishop got press when we had annual conference? It's not important to those people. Oh, maybe as important as Boys Town or something going on in a Catholic church, but you have to be proactive. You can't sit back and wait for something to happen, like one of the presenters here today. You can't do that. You have to be proactive if you want to grow. And you can't always just focus on one denomination. I think we can focus on all people.
Because nobody's writing a press release.
Exactly.
Right, maybe the
Yep.
only pastor we have that
Yep.
was actually taught
How to write.
how to write a press release.
You're right, Jim. I agree with you. Yeah.
And it's
So
something
you-
we should all be able to do.
Yes.
It's not
Who, what, when, where, and why.
Yeah.
It's not that
So
hard.
that's part of your call of duty to, in addition to the pulpit, you're also writing press releases, I suppose.
If we've got something going on, yeah,
Yeah.
it deserves a press release, and in my career before that, even when I was working retail, I would write press releases when we're doing something. There are those days when the local newspaper has, a quarter page of nothing to put there. And in goes your press release verbatim. And somebody may even wander over and snap a picture as well.
Or participate in that particular event.
Yeah.
Because I come from a small town, Hankins, Nebraska.
Okay.
It was pretty prominently Catholic, but there was plenty of Protestant churches there. But my dad always taught me that our income or our family income comes from all faiths. It's just not Methodist. Very little came from Methodist, because my dad was managed the Atkinson sale barn, and then he moved on and started his own company. But we supported all faiths in our community, and I think sometimes when you get to the city, I don't know if that really plays a part anymore. I mean, people are pretty focused on their own organization, because time constraints and other things. But I think that model where you support those people who support you.
I would say as an aside, one thing I'm just sharing more and more with folks these days is to align and to align or be aware of the growth of community foundations and how they are getting so many of their clients to set up donor advised funds. What does that mean for charity? I tell my team, I said, don't freak out. You can still talk to John and Betty about giving from their donor advised fund to Boys Town. You can also talk to John and Betty about when they pass to leave a percentage of their donor advised fund to Boys Town. So it's okay, but the challenge sometimes is when you get a gift from the Omaha Community Foundation. So it's anonymous because the tax deduction came up front when John and Mary put that gift into the Omaha Community Foundation. And they tell the Omaha Community Foundation, hey, send $5,000 to my pastor's church. And so it comes, but it's from OCF. And it's not gonna say John and Mary Smith. So that's the part, whereas charity, we're kind of like, how do we know? How can we find out? And we don't always. But it does go back to those personal visits. That is where we sometimes learn, hey, I've seen you, or no, we don't, they'll say, we might ask them for money and they'll say, I've been giving the last 3 years to my community foundation, so it's probably showing up that way through them. Oh, okay, and then we try to connect the dots and maybe but now we know they're giving, and we can we can continue to steward that relationship and continue to cultivate it. That is something I think we all need to be aware of in charity, that community foundations are trying to get as many donor advised funds. I mean, look at the growth of what Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, holy smokes, look at donor advised funds over the last decade. They're just, and it's a great thing. I get it. I get it. It's a really neat thing, especially if donors want to be anonymous, but kind of puts the pressure a little bit more on charities to find out who are these donors making gifts to us, because we'd like to thank them. Yeah, so there's that.
And they're like, but you're not gonna coach them, so we're not gonna.
Yeah, so the good thing is like, okay, they're giving, and sometimes you have those donors where it doesn't matter if you do stewardship or not. There are a good number of people out there, they don't wanna, there's a stat out there. Pick the number, but it's probably around 80%. Huh? Oh yeah, no, you're right, 1 o'clock, we're done. But 80% of all plain gifts that come to any charity, not just Creighton or Boys Town, or 80% of all plain gifts are generally not known by the charity before it arrives. Because donors, people want to be anonymous, What does the Bible say? Don't let you write, So you have to respect that, and but there is a way to find out about that, and I keep coming back to, it's the one-on-one visits, and getting to know them, and getting them to talk, so finding out. So thank you. That's right.
And that part that we lost during COVID, the historical question, will you visit from house to house? We weren't able to. I started writing notes, and I have a whole file drawer full of notes, box note cards. It takes what, 2 or 3 minutes to send a note and walk out to the mailbox with it. But time and time again, my office manager walks into my office and says, "We got a check, and this note was in there for you."
Makes sense. Personal.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
We're gonna be on status quo there, Jay.